Hello, my friends and family, football family. Professor Teaserking here. Gonna just go over a review of what just happened this weekend and see what we learned and what we didn't learn. Um, I had a nice week in college, 3 teasers, all three won, 29-unit teaser won, 21-unit teaser won. The teasers, the locks were Louisiana Monroe getting 9.5 and Texas State. I had Georgia under, of course. How they came up with a 60, I guess they don't watch football, the line makers in Vegas. I mean, how you came up with a 60 and Georgia doesn't get 60 points in 2 games. And then the third one was Wake Forest getting 9.5, in which was just like a basketball game, 53-50. But it was a good dog. It was a live dog, and that's what we look for when we get a good team. So in the event, if we look at review, we had Wake Forest, which was an A team, playing North Carolina, which was an over team with a weak defense. Now, what do we call Wake Forest? Are they an A team or an over team? Because their stats were of an A team. Obviously, their defense isn't that strong. Weak in a lot of points, so maybe they're an over team, but they're a live dog. Georgia under, great defense. They don't even give up. They're like under 6 points a game. And they played Kentucky and they played Florida. They got Tennessee coming up, and now Missouri's explosive. Didn't score nothing. And then the third one, Louisiana Monroe, I pointed out, has been playing much better. They've got more. They seem to be scoring more. They still stink. They still have a weak defense. But Texas State is a Z team. And when you get a Z team favorite against a team like, I consider Louisiana Monroe an over, so I don't really know what happened in the game that they only scored 19, but they covered getting 9.5, and they lost. They were down 1, gave up a late touchdown with 2 minutes left, and they were down 8, and we still covered. But it's not like the Wake Forest or Georgia or taking an Alabama locking a real strong team, but that's the point. We were playing Texas against Texas State there. So anyway, so the idea of the lock was, so I had Wake Forest with Georgia under for 29 units. I then had Wake Forest and another lock with Louisiana Monroe, and then I had Georgia in another play, I think, with Clemson under. So you play the teasers. You find the teams and you play them together, and then you play them in another teaser. So Wake Forest wins 2 teasers for me. Georgia, I win and a lose, and then Louisiana Monroe, I win in 2 teasers. So that's the idea. You're trying to maximize when you find what you're first looking for is the good team, and then you're looking for how to bet them to maximize your income. So let's look at some games, and we'll change it. So a lot of MAC play on Tuesday and Wednesday. Doesn't really tell you a whole lot just on the games. Army, they look good against Air Force again. Army's very strong dog against these teams. Now even Army went into Wisconsin and played them tough. So Army was getting 9.5 in the teaser. They win the game outright. I knew Army would be a good play. I had them very strong. Utah's turning into an over team, so you pay attention to that. Their over was 54. They got 52 on their own. In the teaser, over's 48. Pitt looked good, blowing out Duke. Pitt's for real. They're an A team. Duke's just becoming an over team, basically. No defense and that. NC State blows out Florida State. NC State's an A team. Just because you're not Clemson and you're not Georgia and you're not Ohio State doesn't make you not an A team. You're an A team within your own league, and an A team is usually a team that scores in the 30s but gives up like 17, 18, 19 points, somewhere in that neighborhood. So both Pitt and North Carolina State fall into that category, which is what you're looking for. So they both easy wins. Miami plays Georgia Tech, and they scored their 33 with Van Dyke. They look great. They gave up 30. Over under was 63. So you go over 57, and they got to 63. So they covered the over again. You got to be careful betting on Miami because they do have the weak defense, and Georgia Tech putting up 30 was a bit surprising because they're not a big offensive team, Georgia Tech, but and then as we see, Miami is transformed into a very strong offense with the new quarterback, and that's what you're watching. Clemson, Louisville. So now Clemson scores 30. So now they're scoring points. They hadn't scored points all year. Louisville, really, it's just their quarterback. So they started to score. So you take notice. So do I keep playing Clemson under? Maybe if they play an under opponent, but if they're starting to score, maybe the quarterback's starting to get better. We be careful on that, and we see what the over-under is. Iowa seems to have run out of gas, beating a weak Northwestern team 17-12. Not much you can say there. You just I have no confidence in Iowa. They were good. And then the quarterback's not that good. And then their defense is still very good. They don't really have a lot of running. So, I mean, they're just basically an under team. So you just look to bet them under. Indiana, Michigan. Michigan needed the win for the playoff, and now that Michigan State lost, now Michigan, they got Penn State this week and then Ohio State. So they're right back in it if they beat Ohio State, if Ohio State beats Michigan State. Excuse me, I apologize. So even though they lost to Michigan State, it doesn't matter because Michigan State now lost to Purdue. And guess who Ohio State plays this week is Purdue. This is all getting very interesting there. So they just pounded Indiana. Indiana started a freshman quarterback. They basically stink now. Here's Michigan. They get 29-7. Well, okay. Indiana doesn't score because of the freshman quarterback, but here Michigan gets 29. So again, they should have gotten probably 40, but they don't. Wake Forest, North Carolina, we talked about the big lock, 58-55. Over-under went from 73 to 77. It's hard to play this game over, and it's hard to play it's hard to tease a 77 down to 71. North Carolina just scores. They have no defense. So I got them marked as a weak defense, which is why I took Wake Forest in the lock. I had Wake Forest -10. North Carolina ended up being -2.5 for 3. Wake Forest now is a live dog, and they go ahead and as a live dog, they had the game. They had them up 14 in the fourth quarter, but ended up losing by 3 at the end there. But again, that's why you played it the way you played it. Was that, hey, Todd, just got back from Vegas. Yeah, almost everyone bet on Baylor, including me on my teaser. It was disappointing, but I do like them as a home dog against Oklahoma. What did Baylor do? That surprised me. They lost to TCU. I don't know if there was turnovers or anything. It happens, but yeah, I like them as a home dog against Oklahoma. TCU fired their coach, so it made perfect sense. And I think they even changed quarterbacks. This is the problem like you get in college, the quarterback change, right? The Jets actually did it in the pros, but nobody heard of Mike White. But usually, Colt McCoy was going to quarterback yesterday. You know everything in the pros. So they switched quarterbacks, and he lights it up because nobody's ever seen film on him. But yeah, Baylor, 30-28, half a point. So I don't know what happened. I gotta read let's see the film, but that happens. But like you said, I like them this week as a home dog to Oklahoma. Oklahoma's not very good. They change quarterbacks. So Rattler, this is what I love, and Rattler cries and transfers to some other school, I guess. It's hysterical. What a bunch of crybabies. There's no way I'd take Rattler. First, he's not that good if he couldn't light it up at Oklahoma. And second, he's a crybaby. So let's see. So Coastal Carolina buries Georgia Southern 28-8. They're a good team, but they're not scoring the way they should there. Georgia Southern's like Navy. They run and run and run. So they take away your possession. So it's hard to really put up a big number on them because you just don't get that many chances. But Coastal Carolina is good. Illinois beats Minnesota. Illinois, they're tougher than you think. They got a good defense. Minnesota, this is the problem with all of football. Go figure them out. I mean, they go and they destroy Nebraska, and they lose to Ball State. Now they lose to Illinois. Oh, my God. Excuse me. I don't know. I'm very tired for a second. Cincinnati, I don't know what their problem is. 28-20 over Tulsa. Tulsa is a weak. I got them as a W, so they have a weak defense. Cincinnati should have put up over 40 points on this defense that gives up 30, and they win 28-20. So I don't know. I assume they know they got to win big. They're not, and they're dropping in the polls. So I can't, here's a team that has to win big to get into the playoff, and they're not doing it. So that tells me they're not very good. They got a good defense. It tells me their offense is not clicking, and they keep making them 20-point favorites. They keep winning by 10, 12. They don't win by what they should to be in the playoffs, so they won't make the playoffs. I think they got a game with SMU or Houston, and then they'll have the championship game for their league, which will be against SMU or Houston also. So they really need to win those two games to get back into the playoff. Let's see. Penn State, Maryland. Penn State look good. Again, here's Maryland. They're playing a tough team. And what happens? Again, they lose. So all the Penn State, Ohio State. I think they got Michigan State coming up. Who was the other team they played? Iowa, and they just get killed. They can't see. It's deceiving. Oh, we got a good quarterback and a good offense. Well, you don't have a good quarterback. Your offense is not good. Doesn't run the ball enough. And that's the problem with these gimmicky offenses. Like, they want to throw the ball around. You can't get it in the red zone, and you throw too many interceptions because it's too easy to put pressure on you. See, if I know you're not running, I can just blitz you, and then what are you going to do? If you can run the ball, I can't just blitz you, and then you can drive it and tire me out. You can't tire the guys out passing the ball. So, again, here comes Maryland, and again, they get killed. Oregon State loses to Colorado, a good offensive team. They're an over team, but they're not. And I don't think I've ever had them as an A or B. I knew they had a good offense. They killed Utah. They killed USC. They beat Washington. They lose to Washington State. Now they lose to Cal and Colorado. It just seems like matchup here. Colorado probably hasn't scored 37 all year. So I don't know what happened if they got turnovers, but basically Oregon State's strictly an over team. Georgia, again, as I said, 43-6 over Missouri. That was a lock under. How the hell they made it 60 points? Okay, there's 49 total, and most of them's going to be by Georgia, but you couldn't play it. They win by 37. The spread was 38 or 39. Now, you would have won in a teaser, but why would you play Georgia and lay 32, play the under? And that's what I didn't understand. If the spread's 38, but the over-under should be like 70 if you're going to make a 38-point favorite, unless they're playing I think Clemson's playing Connecticut this week, and they're like laying 50. But Georgia should I thought that line was high 38, but then it didn't make sense with the over-under. So you were saying they were going to win 48-10, basically, or 48.5 to 10.5, I guess is what they were saying. And that's, so that's a kind of a weird number. If they're only going to score 10 points, then why would the over-under be so high? And again, we're just taking advantage of, again, bad numbers, bad over-under line. Ohio State, minus 8.5, wins by 9 in a teaser, of course, 26-17. See, Ohio State looks good against the weak defenses. This is the whole theory of my weak defenses. I know against weak defenses, normally a good team with a good quarterback is going to score a lot. And so I feel confident. But here you get them against Nebraska. And what does Ohio State do? They only scored 26. Against Penn State, what do? I think they got 24. So that's my point. You against the weak defenses, they're going to score. But against the strong defense, this is where the upset happens. This is where, Ohio State's not going to blow them out by 40. So that was a lesson learned against Penn State. Don't lay, you can't lay that many points against Penn State. So it's the same thing here. Here they play Nebraska, who's a good defensive team. I have them as a B team. And it's all Martinez, but they started playing better. But they just snuck in. But again, the line was low. It was 14.5. I got 8. I got it under 10, which is what I wanted. And I got lucky that it was 8.5, not 9. And that teaser was with Michigan. So Michigan, I knew, had to keep winning because of the loss. Not because Michigan State lost, because I made the bet before, but because they lost to Michigan State, they would be psyched up and they knew they had to win. SMU Memphis is confusing. I don't know if Hennigan played. The Memphis quarterback was supposedly questionable. So I was going to see if he was out, but I don't think I think he played. And Memphis, SMU surprises me with that great offense. And then they 28-25 to Memphis is not a very strong team. So SMU, I don't understand how they it must be See, when passing teams lose, it's usually they blitz them and interceptions. That's usually why you don't see them score 50 points, because you're going, well, they score 50 in all the other games. That's generally what happens is, so when you play a team with the stronger defense and they rush and they can blitz you, that's the problem. Notre Dame 34-6 over Navy. Navy takes time. So most Navy games are under because they grind the clock, they eat the clock, and you don't have as many possessions. Here, 34-6, Notre Dame laying the 21. Now, the Navy quarterback, who's really good, gets hurt in the second quarter, Leviley. So that's not part of the initial review of the game. You're assuming Leviley will play the whole game, just like, you're assuming Cohn plays the whole game for Notre Dame. They're all American safeties out with the knee. Hamilton, he's gone. So Notre Dame's a little bit weaker. Oak State, West Virginia. Oak State's a very strong team. They got one loss. I don't know if they played Baylor, but I think they've already played them. But then they got Oklahoma. So if they beat Oklahoma, then they'll win the Big 12. Then they'll have to play whoever in the second, for the division. They can still make the playoff with one loss. If they beat Baylor, they beat Oklahoma, they beat whoever, maybe Oklahoma twice, which is really stupid way to make the playoffs. Like, we'll play them again. It's this dumb. Louisiana Monroe, we talked about. I had 9.5. They lost by 8. Both teams have weak defenses, yet they only scored 20. It was 27-19. It just didn't make sense. I had Louisiana Monroe as the favorite, and they were the dog. Texas State's a Z. So it all made – that's why I locked it. It just didn't make sense that Texas State probably should have been the dog in this game. Iowa State kills Texas. Texas just it's their defense. They're an over team. They give up 30 points. I got them with a weak defense. It means their defense gives up 30 points a game. That's Texas's problem for the last 5-6 years. All the new coaches come in. Ellinger was there, good quarterback, but again, they don't have the defense. And Iowa State, they held them to 30, but Iowa State shut them down 30-7. Iowa State's kind of a mystery team. They're a very good team. I got them as a B team, but then they'll lose some, they'll lose close games because they don't have the running back. I do like Brock Purdy, but, I don't know. But here they go. They shut the door on Texas. Michigan State, Purdue. Now, here's where you start casually noticing Purdue as an under team. Wait a minute. They just scored 40 points on Michigan State, who has a good defense. They're an 18. Their defense gives up less than 18. And Purdue puts up a 40 on them, and you're scratching your head. You're going, how did they put up 40? And now they get Ohio State, and they had a pretty good defense. So you're like, they could beat Ohio State, except for the games in Columbus. They still could beat them. Keep in mind, they beat Iowa. They won at Nebraska. Now they beat Michigan State. So all of a sudden, Purdue is a lot better than they appeared if you take the whole scope of the season. So we just look at the last few weeks, beating Iowa, beating Nebraska, beating Michigan State, putting up points on strong defenses. O'Connell, their quarterback, looks very good. We know the coach came from Western Kentucky, and they lit it up. So he knows how to call offenses. So look for Purdue to possibly upset Ohio State. What was the line that I saw? Ohio State. I got Ohio State minus 14. The line comes out minus 20. And the over-under is 61. And I'm like, okay, you're giving me 26 in Purdue, who just beat Iowa, Nebraska, Michigan State. They played against good defenses and had no problem. And I'll tell you, Michigan State's defense is as good as Ohio State's. For sure, Iowa's is. And they were able to score on those teams. So I look at it where Purdue could, with 26 points, that's a big number. But I like the over because I think they definitely can score on Ohio State. And Ohio State definitely can score on anybody, except for maybe Georgia. So I look at that as not necessarily as a upset, but 26 points in Purdue. That's a lot of wood to cover. Auburn A&M. I know somebody asked me, should I take Auburn as the dog? They look like a good dog fit. 20-3. They just didn't score. A&M's got a very good defense. A&M's like Illinois, very strong defensively, a lot of unders. That's why they beat Alabama with the tough defense. So you just got to keep that in mind. When you're playing a passing team, A&M's going to beat you. They'll put pressure on the quarterback, and they got good defense. Oregon, Washington. I had Oregon -1 because of the spread. They win 26-16. Really, it wasn't that close. Washington got a late touchdown. Washington's not that good this year. When you look at the box score, their quarterback throws for 150 yards. They got no running. So there's no real star. They play a pretty good defense. They're an under team. So the defense is good, but no offense. And Oregon, I know, going into Ohio State, that's just such a huge confidence boost. And they got the win laying 1. I mean, it was beautiful. Here's Cal. They beat Oregon State, and they lose to Arizona. Now, nobody loses to Arizona. They're the Z team in the Pac-10. And Cal loses to them. So, again, Cal got all excited, beat Oregon State, and then they go to Arizona, overconfident? Cal can't be overconfident. So Arizona's terrible, and Cal just took the day off because they won the other game. UTSA, UTEP, UTSA -11. They win 44-23. They're the A team. They're the best team in that conference. So now that all the conference games are going on, you got to be careful if they're playing Georgia or Michigan and Ohio State. They're not going to, they might not be in the game, but against teams in the league, they're going to be, and they put up a big 44. Their running back's great, quarterback's pretty good, Frank Harris. So they took it to UTEP and played them pretty well. And again, they're an A team, so they got a good defense. Fresno State, Boise. Boise, tough to figure out. They lost a few games, and now they stick it to Fresno, 40-14. A lot of turnovers in the game for Fresno. Fresno had beaten UCLA and beaten Nevada pretty good, and they were at home. That was surprising, that score. Not really surprised Boise won, but 40-14, I'm surprised. Alabama, LSU, very surprising game. Alabama wins 20-14. LSU doesn't have that defense. They're an even team, so they score about 26 and give up about 26. Alabama, high scoring, normally get to that 40. They didn't get it. I got to watch the highlights there, but just surprising. You almost wish that Alabama would have lost. If they're not going to cover, they should lose, because you just want to see, then you can bet them the next week. So that was surprising. Nevada, San Jose State. Now, San Jose State switched quarterbacks to Starkle, and they play, and it was 27-24 because they haven't been scoring. They're an under team normally, but with Starkle, the quarterback from, I think it was Mississippi State, who transferred, they've been really good. He gets hurt. They don't score. Now he's back, and now they put up the 24. And then San Diego State beats Hawaii 17-10. San Diego State just doesn't score. They're an under team. Sorry, I am itching like crazy. In the pros, Houston, Tyrod Taylor plays against Miami. I had Houston, as you heard yesterday, getting, I think it was 11. They lose by 8. A lot of interceptions by Taylor. Houston's not a good team. Miami's terrible. Tagovailoa was out, so with Brissett, they're a much better team than when he's playing. Somebody needs to explain Denver 30, Dallas 16. Again, there's the problem with pros. The team like Dallas, and they give up, not only do they give up 30 to Denver, who's really not that strong, they only get 16, and it all came late in the fourth quarter. They started to score. So I don't know what happened there. You can't explain it. Denver's defense, you traded Von Miller, and the defense got better. So again, you can't figure now, is Denver a live dog? Maybe. We'll see. But this is why you look at stats for the whole year. You can't really look at stats for 3 weeks because it depends who they play. So if you look at stats for the whole year, you kind of get the blend, and then you kind of see it. Denver being an under team. So they have a good defense is what it means, and a lousy offense. Judy came back, so that's helped them. Because, again, they lost Judy and Hamler, the wide receivers. Judy's back. Hamler's gone. But it did help them score a little bit more. And then they had a new running back and Melvin Gordon, and they ran the ball a lot. So maybe Dallas's weak point is running. And this is why I don't understand why teams go to the 5 wide receivers and no running backs. And it just doesn't make sense. They can't. If you can run the ball, it's very hard to stop, and it wears down the defense. If you pass the ball, they just run. You bring in new secondary guys to rest them, but you're not running them. You've got to run the ball to be consistent in the league. Speaking of that, Minnesota, Baltimore, Minnie ran Cook 25 times. Baltimore ran Lamar Jackson. I don't understand the whole concept of Baltimore. Here you have Lamar Jackson. He throws for, 180, and he runs the ball for 150. Why do you want your quarterback to run the ball? I don't understand it. He's not a running back. And if he's going to be a running back, make him a running back. I don't understand at all that offense that they're running. It's just, we'll just give it to Lamar. And I'll tell you, if I was the coach, if I was Minnesota here, I'd have knocked him out of the game. I would have just taken the personal foul and clotheslined him, or just went after his knees. And that's what they used to do. When I watched, Jack Tatum would kill you. I mean, Jack Lambert, Joe Green, all those guys. Lamar Jackson wouldn't last a half against the Steelers or the Raiders of the 70s. New Orleans, Carolina, Donald plays, McCaffrey plays, and they get a whole 6 points. So I don't know. It's funny when I look at the injury list, the whole team's questionable for a lot of these teams. New England, Cleveland, Oakland, you go down the list, and there's so many injuries. So here they try to be smart, and we don't get anybody injured in preseason, and none of them have wind, and then they all get hurt in the regular season. I see a lot of hamstrings, not a lot of knee injuries, more so than usual, but a lot of hamstrings, and a lot of guys out, and they just quit. I mean, it's just, I don't get it. Buffalo, this is Josh Allen. I mean, he threw for 150 yards, 3 interceptions, and then he's running the ball like 10 times. What are you doing? They didn't run the ball against Jacksonville. He threw the ball like 50 times, and yet he couldn't complete passes, and I'm sure 90% of the 50 times were little 5-yard passes. So, again, this is where I have problems with Josh Allen. 3 interceptions. You don't score a touchdown on Jacksonville. Jacksonville gives up 28, 30 points a game. You can't score a touchdown on them? Like, what the hell? This is why I say Jake Fromm, is because of this, that you just got to sit there and just wonder about here, Josh Allen in a big game. Again, Joe Montana doesn't lose this game. Brett Favre doesn't. Troy Aikman, all the good players would never have lost to Jacksonville 9-6. I mean, they might lose it 31-30 on some freak long touchdown, but a Hail Mary, but not 9-6 and not score a touchdown against this team. That's terrible quarterbacking. Cleveland, I said Cleveland was 4 out of 5, and that's why I look at that. They come on big. They're the dog. Cleveland's a very strong dog. Cincy, like I said, they're not a favorite often. They don't handle it well, and again, they get killed. So again, at Baltimore, road dog, they win. They go to the Jets, road favorite, they lose. Here, home favorite, they lose. So you got to watch Cincinnati. If they're the favorite, you bet against. If they're a dog, you take them. And that's just the way Cincinnati is. They don't know how to win yet. Oakland loses to the Giants. The Giants are better than we think. Jones is okay. They ran a ball a lot with some new runner. And they only scored 1 touchdown. They get 23 points with 1 touchdown, 1 pick six, and 3 field goals. So it just shows you these teams that rely on the pass too much. If Oakland would have ran the ball for 150 yards, they win. If any of these teams run the ball for 150, they're going to win 99% of these games because the defense can't stop you. If you just keep running, the defense isn't going to stop you. So this is what happens. You throw the pick six. Baltimore, there was another game with the pick six in it, I think Dallas, and it changes the game. The Rams had a pick six. And you can't run it. It just makes no sense. Atlanta, New Orleans, even with the quarterback, they brought in Taysom Hill, and he lit it up at the end. They took the lead 25-24. Kamara looks great. And Atlanta's starting to get better, so keep an eye on them. See, all of a sudden they're getting comfortable with who was the number 1 draft pick, the tight end from Florida, Pitts. All of a sudden Pitts is playing. They're getting comfortable with him, and they're scoring more. So, keep an eye on Atlanta. San Diego, Philly. I had San Diego getting, I think, 6. Game was like even and a little -1 on both ways. Herbert was questionable, but obviously his hand's fine. He played. And getting San Diego in 6, that was Philadelphia. It's Hurts. I can't trust Hurts. So that was a good play there, San Diego. Green Bay, KC, I had the game under, and I explained that. And they did run Jones quite a bit. And my God, how bad is Jordan Love? He's pathetic. I mean, what's he doing out there? Why is he on the team? Can't you see he's no good? Why you drafted him in the first round is beyond me. When you could have got some receivers, or you could have got some defensive help, which you needed desperately. But when you look at this, you just sit there and you can't understand what they're doing. And Love's terrible. He's not a pro. He's as bad as Fields and Tagliabue. Just bet against him. But I knew it would be an under because I knew Green Bay's not going to do anything with Love. KC, they're gone. They are not KC anymore. This team's pathetic. And all they were is an offensive team to start with anyway. The only reason Green Bay only scored 7 is Love. If Rodgers plays, Rodgers probably wins by 20 points in this game. Arizona, Frisco. This game I am so proud of. I had Arizona. I teased them with Louisiana Monroe getting 8 on Saturday, thinking Kyler Murray was going to play. And I just didn't see how Frisco could be favored in the game. Even with Kyler Murray, Frisco's a team. Garoppolo is like Fields. He can't beat anybody. So I didn't know. Then Colt McCoy comes in. I said, okay, he's not bad. And the line goes from I had Arizona -6. It went Arizona -1. Murray's not playing. Goes Frisco -2. Goes to Frisco -5. I got Arizona in 8, and they get out to a 17-0 lead. It was a joke. They ran the guy from Pitt, Connor. They ran Connor. See, as long as you can run, the quarterback isn't as vital. And that's what happened here. And they just ran, and Garoppolo didn't do anything. Once Arizona gets the lead on you and they play defense and they blitz you a lot, that was all over. And the Rams, Stafford has returned to Lion form, 28-16, throws a pick 6. Now, without Henry, they didn't really run it. They passed it more. And Julio Jones played. So you got to be careful. When Julio Jones actually plays, Tennessee then is a much better passing team because you just can't guard him. But most of the time, he's got the hamstring injury for the last 5 years, and he doesn't play. And then, but then you had Henry. So Henry's out. The other running back came in, did okay. Nothing special, but then it was just Julio Jones. Tonight, Chicago, Pitt. I got Pitt. I think Khalil Mack's out. I thought I saw that in the injury list. Fields. So basically, I'm just betting against Fields in this game. Lawrence didn't really beat Buffalo. I don't know what the hell. Lawrence didn't put up any numbers. They didn't run the ball. I mean, how Buffalo lost? Well, I think he threw 3 interceptions, Josh Allen. Again, get Jake Fromm in there. They don't lose the game. So lessons learned. So you're looking at teams changing. You got Tampa Bay back this week. Now, keep an eye in college. Let's go back to college. Keep an eye on the playoffs. So the playoff teams should still be Georgia, Alabama. Cincinnati's fading, Ohio State. Baylor, this is what was frustrating about Baylor, Todd, is Baylor had to win it for the playoff. Oak State's still in it. Oregon, they do good. Michigan State lost to Purdue because they were emotionally flat after the loss to Michigan, or after beating Michigan. Michigan, after the loss, comes on. Wake Forest was a lock because they needed to win for the playoff. They lose. And that was it. So basically, a lot of these teams just showed their real colors. Alabama choked, Cincinnati choked, Baylor choked, Michigan State choked, and Wake Forest choked. So all those teams are chokers. They needed to win, and they lost. So now it becomes Alabama, even though they choked out of default. Cincinnati, who's undefeated, but they can't seem to beat anybody good. Ohio State has Purdue this week. Oak State. Who's Oak State got? Bear with me. I normally highlight those teams. but I don't see the highlight. Maybe they don't play. Yeah, here it is. Oak State 13 over TCU. So they should hammer TCU, but again, TCU switched quarterbacks, so you don't know what you're getting. Oregon again, Michigan at Penn State, Wake Forest. I just don't see them getting there with the loss, but they could maybe. So it gets narrowed down. So Cincinnati's backdooring into it. Cincinnati's got an easy game. They're 20 points. They're 23 over South Florida. Again, they're 20-point favorites, and they can't beat anybody by 20 points. The game they'll win by 20, besides the Notre Dame game, will be when they play SMU and Houston. When those are big games and they'll be, favored by 3, that's when they'll win by 20, because they'll be focused. Now, I don't think they're focused, or they don't know how to get focused. So they just go through they get the lead, they play good defense, and then they're not finishing it for some reason. It's hard to explain. I think maybe it's the receivers. I saw a wide receiver drop the ball right in his hands for an easy touchdown. And so they're just not getting – a lot of it is you got to get the quick scores. So you got to get a pick six, a strip sack, get a good punt return, things like that, or long runs. That's how you really run the score. That's what Alabama normally does. That's why they only put up 20 on Alabama or on LSU, was they didn't really get – for some reason, Alabama always gets that pick six, strip sack type of play. And then they and then they just pound you and then so it's 28 points of offense, 14 points on defense, special teams. I guess their defense didn't put up anything. But it is weird how they score in offense and defense. So SMU's gone. And then, so who's up and coming? I mean, if we look at the board, there's always Army. Pitt's playing very well. NC State's playing very well. Miami, I've told you about Van Dyke. Clemson's starting to score more. Don't know. It's hard to play them. Iowa's on the way down. Michigan is playing well, not great. Wake Forest, you get them as a dog, they're going to be good. Coastal Carolina. Illinois is better than they look. They got a good defense. Let's see. Baylor, yes, I agree. They should beat Oklahoma. Penn State. So it'll be an interesting game. They're favored over Michigan, which I'm surprised that Penn State's favored. If it stays like that long enough, I'll take Michigan as the dog. Michigan should beat Penn State at Penn State. They usually play them very tough, and usually, as much as they can't beat Ohio State, they do beat Penn State. So this will be curious. Oregon State, you can only bet them over. They can't. I mean, how do you lose to Colorado? I don't know what's going on with their defense. Georgia under, Gold, Ohio State. This will be an interesting one with Purdue. They got Purdue, they got Michigan State and Michigan. Ohio State's got a real tough last 3 games, and this will show. I don't know that they're going to go and win all 3. Michigan State normally plays Ohio State very tough. Michigan always loses to Ohio State. So, and that's where my whole theories come from, is if I played racquetball against Joe and I always beat him, and then Joe plays Bill and Joe always beats Bill and Bill always beats me, became the matchup. That's where it really originated from. And I'd go, depending on who I played, I knew I was going to win or lose. And that's where this whole trend analysis comes from, is who are you playing and then what type of team. And then that's going to base it if you're going to win or lose. And that's really the creation of it. So that's what you have. Let's see. Auburn's out of it. A&M, tough defense. Purdue is really getting strong. Michigan State's very strong team. They just ran into Purdue, and they're really throwing the ball nicely. Oregon, they're up for the Pac-10. Let's see, UTSA, they're the number 1 team in Conference USA. Fresno State and Nevada. They're very tough teams in conference. And Alabama, I don't think is against the better team. LSU has even though Bote and Stingley were out, LSU has the athletes. They get very good athletes at LSU, and they were able to play them tough, even though I don't know who the hell the coach was. So let's take a quick peek at this week's games. So you basically – no big surprises. Cincinnati hasn't been covering. Ohio State played a tougher game against a good defensive team. So the moral of the story is when you're playing a real tough defensive team, you're not going to score a lot. So I don't care if you're Ohio State, Alabama, as just showed here, they didn't do anything. Look what happens when you play Georgia. Teams like Missouri, who score 35 a game, Arkansas, Florida, Kentucky, teams that score a lot, they don't do shit against Georgia. So you got to keep in mind the defense, and that's why I rank them. So when you're playing an A team or an under team, this is what do I got Purdue at? I got Purdue as a under team, but now they're probably going to be a B team because they're starting. Let's see what Purdue's numbers look like now. So Purdue's probably going to go to a B team. If the stats don't bold out, it doesn't matter. It's still, you're still looking at. I mentally look at the last few games. So Purdue here. Come on. So Purdue's now 20. They score 25 and give up 18, but really the last few games they're probably almost a 30 and an 18, right? They scored 40 on Michigan State. They beat Nebraska. They put up into 30s there. So all of a sudden Purdue is, and they're still giving up only 18. So Ohio State's going to have a hard time blowing out Purdue. I don't see that happening. So again, you keep that in mind. So don't get overexcited on Ohio State because they're playing a real tough team. And same thing when they play Michigan State. This is the problem with their rookie quarterback, right? He had it going, but who did he lose to? He lost to Oregon, right? Good team. And he blows out a bunch, but he really doesn't blow out anybody really great. Indiana, Maryland, neither of these teams have a defense. So he's putting up a lot of points. And this is where these GMs, for some reason, can't figure it out. So why do I, when I do my draft, say this quarterback's good or he's not, is for that simple reason. So when you look at the Ohio State guy against the weak teams, he lights it up. But when he plays the strong teams, he barely beat Penn State. He lost to Oregon. And that's what you got to know. That's why I say they're never any good, because in the big games, they don't show up. Trevor Lawrence, Tagliavua, they don't show up in the big games. How are they going to show up in the pros? But when you see a guy like Kyle Trask or Joe Burrow who shows up in the big games, that's why I get all excited with him going, wow. And so that's what you have to notice. So let's look at some games. Pitt against North Carolina. Now, this is last night's lines, and they changed so much. Pitt only laying 6 to North Carolina, and then you got this 75 over-under. North Carolina scores a lot, but, Pitt's got an A defense, and North Carolina's got a terrible defense. So Pitt should light it up with Pickett. And the question is, do you play it over or do you play the 6 to even? Cincinnati, again, 23 over South Florida. South Florida's got a terrible defense, but so did Tulane or Tulsa. Tulsa, their defense gives up 30, and Cincy only scores 28 on that. And here they go against South Florida, who's got a weak defense, and they'll be lucky to put up 30 here. It just doesn't make sense. Coastal Carolina, 10 over Georgia State. Georgia State with the weak defense. Coastal Carolina with the great quarterback, McCall. I mean, that should be a play. Here's one I don't understand. Clemson, 40 over Connecticut, and yet the over-under is 49. So you're almost better off playing Clemson minus 40 down to 34, then the over-under of 49 down to 43, because Connecticut's not going to score. So why lay 43 in an under when I can lay 34 in and take Clemson to win by 34? Question is, can Clemson score enough to win by 34? And that's really the question there, because their quarterback sucks, but Connecticut's a terrible team. So, but that's how you would play that. Why would I go 43 and an under? Or no, I would go, I would go under 55. So that makes a little more sense. So if I think Clemson puts up a 40 and they're going to shut out Connecticut, but I don't think they'll score 30. I don't think they'll score 34 points. Then I would go under 55. So my method, my madness is a little reverse there. Iowa 6 over Minnesota. This is for the conference title. They're both tied. Both teams are under teams, but the over-under is 37. The over-under is way too low here. I don't know that it doesn't warrant going. You could go over 31 because that's such a ridiculously low number. But it just seems when the over-under is this low is when they go over, and when the over-under is in the 50s is when they win 10-7. But I don't know. Iowa's terrible. Minnesota, you can't figure out which team you got. And again, the game's in Iowa, so I would guess Iowa, but that's for the Big Ten West. The winner will be in the lead because Wisconsin's kind of terrible this year, and Nebraska's not that good. The whole league's not that good. Penn State, I got -1. I have my line's Michigan -3. It came out Penn State -1, over under 48. If anything in this game, I like the over 48-42 because as you saw against Ohio State, it was a mid-40 game. And Penn State will score a lot more on Michigan than they did on Ohio State, and Michigan will score. So this should be to me, this should be an over, but I like if I got Michigan, if I get the dog, it's Michigan, then I like Michigan as the dog here, even better than the over. Houston Temple. Houston's undefeated, needs the game. Temple's terrible. A Z team with a weak defense. Some of these Z teams they only give up 29. I mean, they could, if they score 14 and give up 29, they're a Z team. I call them a weak defense if they give up 30 or more. The second, Thomas. Do you think the Washington football team should try to get a veteran in the offseason like Garoppolo or Goff? Or should they try to draft a rookie like Coral, Willis, or Howell? Well, Howell stinks. I wouldn't draft him. And Willis, he's not good. If you want to talk quarterbacks, then let's go to Nevada's, Fresno State's. Those guys are quarterbacks. And the guy, Carolina McCall, those three quarterbacks are better than what you're telling me here. Washington, Garoppolo stinks. Goff is a choke. I would go after, really, if I was the GM of Washington, I'd go after Jake Fromm from Georgia, who's on Buffalo. That would be who I would get, or Trask, who's on Tampa Bay, who lit it up very strong last year, and now he's just sitting on the bench. So if Brady comes back, I would trade for Trask from Florida. That's why Tony and Pitts were any good, is they had Trask throwing the ball to him. He's very good also. He's better than all three of those guys. So that would be my choice. You got Fromm sitting on the bench, who's better than all these guys. But they got Josh Allen because he went to the Peyton Manning camp, so he must be a good quarterback. I'm ready to throw up with this Peyton Manning, Daniel Jones, and that, and they all try to run the ball. Didn't Peyton Manning teach him how to read a defense and read a blitz? Apparently not. So that would be my answer. I don't like any of those three. Howell is overrated. Willis. What's with Malik Willis? He's the kid from Louisville, or is he the kid from Liberty? I think they're both named Malik, but they're both runners. They're not, why do you want a running quarterback? They can't win. I mean, the defense is, In the college, it kind of is okay, but when you get in the pros and the linebackers are faster than them, it just doesn't make sense. Back to where I was, Mississippi State 13 over Maryland. They should kill them. Again, Maryland has no defense, and Michigan State will just blow up their the quarterback, and Michigan State can run the ball with Walker. They can throw it off of a loss. They know they need to win. They've got the one loss, and they got Ohio State following, and then Penn State. So this is a must-win for Michigan State off a loss. So I look for State to come in. Here's a very live dog, Syracuse getting 9. Syracuse, very good. They played Clemson. Should have been to a tie. The kid missed a field goal at the end. Clemson won 17-14, but Syracuse is very live dog here. Oak State, as we talked about, needs to win. TCU switch quarterbacks, but I think TCU, they got their win. But see, Baylor doesn't have the defense that TCU. Baylor has a good defense. Oak State's got a great defense. Sanders is back as quarterback. So I look for Oak State having to win. I don't know when they play Oklahoma. I think it's in a few weeks. So it's a must-win for Oak State there. Texas, look for Texas to kill Kansas. They're going to take it out on Kansas, losing all these games. I had Kansas State against Kansas last week and got the win. And Texas, they're laying 30. They're going to win by 60 in this game. Even with their weak defense, Kansas scores a little, but look for them to get pick sixes and look for them to put up a ton of points here. Very interesting game is Wake Forest. I got laying 2 to NC State, over or under of 66. See, I don't know. North Carolina State's got a good defense. I don't know that this is going up and down the field. Remember, Wake Forest played the Army 70-49, and then yesterday it was 58-55 to North Carolina, but neither of those teams have that strong defense. They're both over teams. Now they got a strong defense like NC State. I'll be curious to see if North Carolina puts a 50 on the board against them. And that's really a question. NC State, good. I like their quarterback, and then they have a balanced team. So are they a live dog? Well, if you think they're going to stay, if they can score enough, they're a live dog. So it's a real tricky game I got to think about. Do I take over 60, thinking North Carolina State's going to score a lot and Wake Forest you can't stop? Or do I take the 8 in NC State? So those are tough, but that's a very, very good game in the ACC. Oklahoma 6 over Baylor. Oklahoma's an over team. Baylor's the 8 team. Oklahoma switched quarterbacks. Shouldn't bother them. Baylor's got an offense that they can run the ball and pass it. Look for them to pound it and keep Oklahoma's offense off the field. Over under a 63. They shouldn't get close to it. Excuse me. Because I think Baylor is going to just pound it at them, right? When you got good running backs against a team like Oklahoma, you run the ball, keep their offense off the field. And Baylor's got a strong defense. So I think this game does not go 63. But Baylor in 12, I really like that one. Baylor's the better team here, even though Oklahoma's undefeated. They haven't played Oak State, haven't played Baylor, had an easy schedule. And so you really can't look at the record, but I like Baylor as the better team, as a home dog. That's a real strong play there. Notre Dame, Virginia. Notre Dame laying 4.5. Notre Dame finds a way to win. Like I said, the safety, the All-Americans out, which is crucial because Virginia is a throwing team with the weak defense. Over under 64. This is probably an over. Notre Dame will play like they did against North Carolina, 44-34. So they'll know they'll need to score, and Virginia can light it up but can't stop the win. So this should be an over. Western Kentucky and Rice. Why am I bringing this game up? Well, because Rice is terrible. They're a Z team, terrible defense. Western Kentucky throws the ball with Zapke all over the place. You're laying 19, so they got to win by 2 touchdowns by 13 against a team that they're going to score 60 points on here. Rice with this terrible defense, and they don't have much of an offense to worry you. So this is my whole theory here. I'm betting against the Z team and Rice, but I got an over team with Western Kentucky where the guy throws for 500 yards a game. He's going to throw for 500 yards on Rice. They're going to put up at least 50 points, and Rice can't keep with them. So this is where the point spread is generous, 19 down to 13 with Western Kentucky. There you go. That's a strong play here. Utah, Arizona. Utah needs the game. They're winning the Pac-10 South, I guess it is. And they've been scoring a lot. They've switched quarterbacks, and they've been lighting it up. Arizona got their win. They had lost 20 in a row or whatever. They're not very good. They beat a terrible Cal team. And they only scored 10 points. So Cal, I don't know what their heads were up their ass. They only scored 3 on this team. But look for Utah to light it up. I think it's Rising, the quarterback. 25 down to 19. So keep it under 21. And they must have the game, and they're scoring, and they've been winning on the road. The only loss was to my Oregon State team. So I look for Utah to really blow out a weak Arizona team. UCLA this week, we got a minus 15 to Colorado. Colorado, very much an under team. Then, see, now I don't know what to do with them, right? They score a lot. They beat Oregon State, and they score a lot of points. Are they still an under team? If they're an under team, I love UCLA. But if they start scoring a lot, UCLA doesn't have a good defense. So then you've got this to be a high scoring game. So this is what happens when Colorado starts scoring. You don't know what to do with them. Like Louisiana Monroe, I thought, okay, here they go. They're scoring. And then they put up 28 on App State. And then last week they only put up 19 on Texas State. I was expecting a 40-point score for Louisiana Monroe. So now all of a sudden they stop scoring. Well, wait a minute. You beat South Alabama and you beat Liberty. Liberty's a good team. We all know. So this is the thing. What has Colorado done here? And I got to check. Was there a quarterback change or a lot of turnovers? I mean, how did Colorado score so much? So you got to read into were there pick sixes, which could happen. They're a good defensive team. Kickoff returns. What happened in the game that got Colorado their points? Did their offense score a lot, or was it special teams, pick sixes, and everything else? And that's what you really got to look at. Let's see. Arizona State, Washington. Arizona State's a strong team. Washington, probably under 44, under 50 probably is a good way to play this one. But Arizona State should win it. Oregon, 14 over Washington State. Oregon needs to win. They're winning the Pac-10. Washington State, they're throwing the ball again like they did with Leach. Should be an interesting game. My Oregon State team, 10 over Stanford. Stanford stinks. Oregon State at home off of the loss. They should probably kill Stanford. But we'll see. And, here I'm laying 4. So if the spread dropped to like 9 or 8.5 and I can go under 3, I'll definitely take Oregon State. Otherwise, I gotta, okay, what's happening to them? But it wasn't their offense, it was their defense. So then what's going to happen? Will their defense come into play here? Let's see. So here, Iowa State, 10 over Texas Tech. Should be Iowa State all over the place. They just clamped down on Texas. They should clamp down on Texas Tech. And they should be able to score because Texas Tech's defense is terrible. So I would think Iowa State, I think that's a small number, 10 down to 4. I think they win that game easy. There's so many games. So let's get to the more sexy ones. Here's a lock for everybody. UTSA, 33 terrible. I think 3 quarterbacks are out. Their defense sucks. UTSA, they're my team. They're undefeated. Lane 33 at home, must win so they can stay up in their conference against the team that stinks. So look for them to blow out Southern Miss. Georgia, Tennessee, Georgia 20, over under 55. Again, 55. You're given, like, what is Tennessee now supposed to score? Missouri, who has a great offense, Kentucky, Florida, none of them could get 10 points. And now you think, what, Tennessee's going to light them up? So, again, I don't understand the 55. I think they just take averages, but they're oblivious to Georgia. So, again, I love Georgia. Under 61 is absolutely a joke. I don't even look at the spread. I don't even look, well, should I take Georgia minus 14? I see the 55. I go, we're going under 61, folks. Ohio State, like I said, 20 and 61 against Purdue. I think this is, you can take Purdue in 26. I think it's pretty safe. And I think over 61 is even safer. I think you go make that over 55. I think that's beautiful. I think that Purdue's been scoring, scored on Michigan State 40 points, on Nebraska, big number. Even on Iowa, they put up 27. Their defense is strong. Ohio State is going to score, and they're going to get in the 30s. So here's where you got it. They're going to get in the 30s. Purdue's going to score in the 20s. That makes the 26 in Purdue a really good thing. But then that gets it also over 56. So you almost got a double here, a Purdue and an Ohio State over in this game. Miami, my newfound Van Dyke team, over under 61. Florida State scores a lot with the other quarterback, not Milton. McKenzie is just, I just don't think he's mentally there with his leg. Again, weak defense with Miami. They're going to score a ton. Over under 61. You go over 55. I think that's easy. Miami really, Florida State scores a lot. Miami can't stop them, but nobody can stop Miami. So that's a good over. Fresno State 25 over New Mexico. Look for them to bounce back. The Air Force laying 2 to Colorado State. Colorado State, pretty good defensive team. It's at Colorado State, so the altitude won't bother Air Force. All Colorado's in the mountains in Colorado State, and Air Force is in Colorado. So don't know what to say there. And then Nevada, San Diego State won over Nevada. I love Nevada and points. So that's basically next week's college. So you're looking at who needs to win. You start looking at the conference championships, teams that need to win to win the conference, and that's very important to, like, the UTSAs, Nevada, and Fresno State. They know they're not going to the playoff, but they certainly want to win their. That's what they play for, to win the I don't know what it's called now, the Western Athletic Conference or the Mountain West or whatever it is. They certainly want to win it, so they're motivated and they're the good teams. But that kid's strong, the quarterback in Nevada. Now that's who I'd be looking at. And Hayner, the quarterback from Fresno State, are much better than Howell and Willis. Just because they don't go to the North Carolinas or the big schools doesn't mean they're not good quarterbacks. Look at Derek Carr, Fresno State, and Romo didn't even go to college. He went to high school. And a lot of these quarterbacks, they don't all have to be Joe Montana at Notre Dame or Steve Young at BYU or McMahon to be a good pro. So definitely these guys are there. So that's the review. So again, keep your eye on the teams changing, the new quarterback. So we caught Miami with the new quarterback. We see Georgia under, just play them, and so that's what we got there. I'll probably have a couple of locks going this week, but again, I just started studying it. But that Purdue game's interesting. The Georgia game's interesting. The Baylor game's interesting. Utah, Michigan State, Michigan. So depending on how the lines will depend on how many locks I have. I'll probably post them early. So if you're going to buy my locks, you probably want to buy them tomorrow because before these lines, like if I get Michigan +1 and I'm going to take them +7, they could easily end -3. And keep in mind, if I'm locking it as the dog and then they go favorite, you play it, but it's not a lock anymore, or you play it a little bit smaller. Just ask me on the judgment of what it is, but that's what I'm looking for. So anyway, that's last weekend. I got a few highlights to watch to figure out like really what happened to Buffalo and what happened to the Rams and some of these teams. But you've got to realize the only real good team is Tampa Bay, who have been injured. So when they start getting their defensive players back and Antonio Brown, you've got Brady. That's when you really start. That's the team. Kansas City's gone. They're not. Who's the new Kansas City? Well, it ain't Buffalo. Tennessee's been playing really strong. They lose Henry and they don't miss a beat. They sign Adrian Peterson, who's fine. So that's what you're looking at. You're looking at who can I bet on, and it's really Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. Congratulations. What else is new? That's who you bet on. You bet on the strong players. Is this too much inconsistency? You don't know what Minnesota team shows up. You don't know what Baltimore, Cincinnati. See, this is the problem. There's so much risk because you don't know the team. So that's why I go to my my psychological sheet and I go, okay, Cincinnati, you can only play as the dog. Arizona, you can only play on the road. It's just amazing. KC's a good road favorite. San Diego, great road dog. Seattle, normally a great road dog. Here's where I miss Russell Wilson. They're going into Green Bay this week. What would be a lock against Green Bay with Russell Wilson is now, if he's not playing, it's a Green Bay play. So you got to be careful. But, Smith's starting to get better. So, again, it's a very difficult. There's a lot of variables that are going on now where with Brady, you know what you're getting. So you're not getting what you know what you're getting with a lot of the pro teams. The Rams, you got to be careful with Stafford. He throws those interceptions. He chokes in the big games. He always has. He always will. So you got to be careful. He ain't taking him to the Super Bowl. Yeah, he lit it up against some weak teams, but he's not going to the Super Bowl. And then you've got Arizona. Maybe they're there. J.J. Watt gets hurt. They got the receiver. They got the good passing team. They seem like the second best. So it's Tampa and Arizona are probably the best. Dallas, you thought was great, and then Denver crushes them. So now you still can't. Prescott plays. They beat Minnesota without Prescott. They get Prescott back, and they lose. They get killed by Denver at home. So, again, this is the problem. Now, do you make too much out of one game? That's why I try to take the whole season and say, here's what they are, instead of just looking at the one game. And all you can say is the teams that lost, the Rams, Buffalo, Dallas. So here's what happens. You get pissed at them. You don't want to bet them next week, but they get pissed that they lost, and they play backs against the wall, and they play a good game. So this is what happens. The problem is when they're weak and they lose. Like a Minnesota, like just because they lost, you can't really bet them back because they are not very good. Or Kansas City, which you thought, okay, they're back, and they're not. 13 points on Green Bay was pretty pathetic. Beating Jordan Love is not a big thing. All right, I'm going to let you go. Again, www.teaserking.com. I'll post my history soon, but again, 3-0 on the locks last week. I'm sure I'll have some locks this week. Have a great day, everybody, and I wish you good luck tonight. We got Pittsburgh tonight, and go from there. Okay, everybody, www.teaserking.com. Just wish everybody a great day. The professor signing off.